Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to practice together, and also for your interest in this very important topic. It's a topic that I used to talk about at least twice a year. I think when we first moved up from Los Angeles to Oregon, and after about 7 years, Cassandra said, "Okay, that's enough." We've been very well educated on this subject, and let's just move on with practice. But unfortunately, these forms of suffering don't go away. And one of the reasons for giving this talk tonight is, in the past year, the American Zen teachers, and there are two organizations that Hogan and I belong to, the American Zen Teachers Association, which is Zen teachers in different traditions, in Rinzai Japanese Zen tradition, in Soto Zen tradition, and in the Korean Zen tradition. And sometimes we have people from the Thich Nhat Hanh Vietnamese Zen tradition come to that meeting too. So it crosses lineages and traditions. American Zen Teachers Association, and then the other organization is the Soto Zen Teachers Association, SZBA, Soto Zen Buddhist Association, and that is just Soto Zen teachers. And they have, both groups have met at the monastery various times. And in this past year, the AZTA, American Zen Teachers Association, and the SZBA have been dealing with two situations in which Zen teachers in America were involved in misconduct. The first situation involved Edo Shimano Roshi, who's a Japanese teacher who's been in the United States for decades, maybe 40 years or more. And we've known about his predation on women students, and verbal abuse of women students, emotional abuse of women students for many years. And we tried, 15 years ago, the AZTA, which was a fledgling organization, wrote a letter to the board of the Zen Studies Society, his organization, in New York, asking that an end be put to this kind of behavior, because the teachers were seeing fallout, all of us were seeing fallout of this misconduct. So we were getting refugees and victims and survivors from his organization. And we were assured at the time that his behavior stopped. But then last summer, two American teachers who have been transmitted by him and are teaching, one in Seattle and one in Syracuse, came to the AZTA meeting and told us that a new episode had just occurred. So this blew everything open again. And the American Zen Teachers Association has learned a lot in the last 15 years about teacher misconduct, unfortunately. So we all work together to support these other two teachers in dealing with this situation, this time in a very effective way. So Edo Shimano has resigned and is no longer teaching under the auspices of the Zen Studies Society or at Dago-Zatsu, the Zen Monastery in the Catskills in New York. There's still a lot of issues to resolve. Things have not completely settled down, but effective action has been taken by the group of American Zen teachers, who collectively wrote a letter and then individually also wrote letters about the situation, which helped bring it into the public eye. Some people were aware of it because Aiken Roshi, who died last year, had known for about 40 years. He had been a person to whom people who had been abused by Edo Roshi went for counsel for 40 years, and he had tried for 40 years to stop this behavior and had been unsuccessful, and felt very badly about this himself, that he had not been able to prevent more victims from being damaged by Shimano's behavior. So he had collected papers And these were published on the web starting about 2 years ago, I think. Roshi gave permission to the University of Hawaii, who was the repository of his collected papers, to publish publicly what was called the Aiken Shimano Archive. So people had become aware of his past behavior, and then when the new episode arose, then that sparked the teachers to say something must be done. So we had just about recovered from that episode, which was quite difficult to bring to any kind of resolution where we felt comfortable about what had happened. When in February, my Dharma brother, person that I trained with at ZCLA, Gemma Giselle, was discovered to be involved with at least 3 women students over the past 3 years. Both of these teachers were married. The Hiroshima and Roshi's been married all this time, and Genpo's been married too. And in the case of Genpo, this was the 3rd episode in his career as an ordained Zen person and teacher. The first was at ZCLA in 1983. Revelations came out that he had been involved with a number of women students, had affairs with them, at least 5. And at the same time, as secrets were being revealed, being brought to light, also Maizumi Roshi's alcoholism came to light, and the whole Sangha at ZCLA, about 100 people, attended an intervention, professional intervention. So we were the alcoholic family, but being educated about the dynamics of alcoholism. It was quite stunning. And also, Maizumi Roshi's affairs came out at that time too. He had affairs with students. So with Genpo, the first episode was at ZCLA in 1983. Then he moved to Maine and founded the Kanzeon Zen Center in Maine. But then there were revelations in 1991, I believe, that he had been involved with at least 1 student, and I know of more, in Maine. So that center was set into turmoil, and the assets were sold, and then he moved to Oregon. In Oregon, I worked with him, and the Carlsons worked with him on these issues to no success. And so we had an intervention involving others and teachers, a hearing in which some of the victims came and testified. And with the result that Genpo moved to Salt Lake City and then married, and it looked like things had really settled down. And he became a leader in the White Plum lineage, which is our lineage, and helped actually deal with issues of misconduct with 2 other teachers in our lineage that arose, and helped deal with them very effectively, and talked very strongly and very convincingly about keeping the precepts and the importance of the precepts and how he had ignored the precepts in his previous life as a teacher. So then we thought things were going along well, and then in February, the new episode. So the American Zen teachers and the Soto Zen teachers now had a new episode to deal with. And as some of you may know, if you've looked at the site Sweeping Zen, we wrote a letter signed by 44 teachers asking various things of the Kanzeon Zen Center board. Kanzeon now moved from Maine to Salt Lake. And we asked that they not sell the asset, not sell the center this time, because that leaves people not only bereft of a spiritual teacher, but bereft of a center in which they can process and heal and renew their practice and go on. So we asked that that not be done this time. And we asked that Genpo take at least a year leave of absence to indicate how seriously he took this misbehavior and the harm that he had done, and that he receive professional counseling specific to clergy abuse. None of that has happened. The center has been put up for sale about 2 weeks ago, And you can read on the website, so you can ask me questions later. I realize that this talk will lead to a lot of questions, so if you can save your questions, remember your questions, I can answer them at the end. So that's a situation which is still evolving and not evolving well, I would say. The center is in disarray. Some people have elected to stay with Genpo as a teacher of Big Mind, and others have left and are trying to find places of practice. So why is this an issue? This is an issue for me personally, because both Genpo and Maizumi Roshi initiated affairs with me while I was a student at UCLA. So I have personal knowledge of the dynamics and the damage that can be done when a teacher crosses boundaries and gets involved sexually with students. Both Hogan and I, because Hogan was at UCLA at the time, personally witnessed the destruction and the turmoil that clergy misconduct can cause, and any kind of misuse of power. This falls under the larger category of misuse of power. There can be sexual power, it can be financial misuse of power, it can be misuse of the public pulpit, of the speaking, the ability to speak to a group like I'm speaking to you now. So it can take many forms, and often there's not just one aspect involved. So after Hogan and I moved from UCLA and came up to Oregon, in particular, I read a lot about spiritual communities that had gone awry to try to see how does this happen. So I read about the Hare Krishnas, I read about the Rajneeshis, which was a very hot issue here in Oregon when we moved here in 1984, and did a lot of study about spiritual groups and so the signals that things are going off the rails. And then Hogan and I went to train at the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley. It was a training offered by what's now called the Faith Trust Institute in Seattle, headed by Marie Fortune, who's a Protestant minister, who, and the Faith Trust Institute and Marie Fortune have a particular interest in issues of domestic violence, child abuse, and clergy misconduct, and have done a lot of writing and very professional trainings on this issue. And they offer this training around the country. So Hogan and I went to one of the trainings. We were the only Buddhists who had ever done it and still have ever done it, although we've encouraged our colleagues to attend the training. So it was designed for Christian ministers and Jewish congregations, Jewish rabbis, and Catholic priests and congregations. But we discovered that if you just change the language a little bit, the dynamics are the same. So we did a 2-day training on issues of clergy misconduct, and I have a lot of materials that came out of that training and subsequent trainings downstairs for you to see. And then we have given that training, given variations of that training in workshops to Buddhist teachers around the country, and also at centers like Spirit Rock, centers that were having some difficulties. We also held a retreat for survivors of abuse by Hindu and Buddhist teachers, and that was maybe 10 years ago. So a group of women came to that retreat, and Marie Fortune came down and trained us in leading that kind of retreat. We've advised various sanghas when issues of clergy misconduct have come up. And I've written a lot on this. I brought some of the things that I've written downstairs so you can look at them. There's a publication from the Buddhist Peace Fellowship called Safe Harbor. Because UCLA wasn't the only Zen center that had problems with clergy misconduct.